just wanted to know if you're ready.
All right,
For us.
I'm ready to go.
We're
Everybody ready here?
charged. Okay.
All right, I'll call the meeting of the general government and. Hello? We have mics, but General Government and Finance Committee to order at 5:31. Now it seems like it's working. This meeting has been given public notice in accordance with section 19.83 and 19.84 Wisconsin statutes in such form that will apprise the general public and news media of subject matter that is intended for consideration and action. Roll call shows all members present except for Trustee Pieper. Is anybody online? You know? We have a WebEx going?
We do have a WebEx going. When I was back there wasn't anybody on.
Okay. All right. With that, we'll move on to item 3, which is citizen input. Please come up to the podium for citizens input. Give your yellow slip to our deputy clerk, and please keep your comments to approximately 3 minutes.
Melanie Smythe, N140 W17938 Cedar Lane. I just have a question for clarification. When we've got this retention bonus for communication officers, which I'm for, I'd just like to maybe have a running list of what the actual costs versus what was stated as the savings were, because I think we were told that it would be $300,000 in savings, and it's kind of lost track of what the additional costs have been in order to accommodate the dispatch moving to the county. Maybe it's too soon to do that at this stage, but certainly by the end of the year and during budget time, I'll be re-asking that question. So that's my question. Thanks.
All right, thank you. It's working now. Anyone else for public input?
Okay, Scott Effley, W159 and 10514 Old Farm Road, Germantown. I find it interesting, maybe it's just me, but there's a budget info meeting on July 31st, and apparently we don't have our audit results back presented until the village board meeting on August 5th. So how are people like me who are interested in the budget and actually know something about budgeting supposed to get information? Is it going to be presented at that meeting, or is it waited till it's presented to the board, which, you know, that could be it, but I think that's curious. Took a look over the CIP. I know Matt Mortwet isn't here, but I'd like to thank him for putting that together along with the department heads, because in my opinion, coming to meetings for 3 years, first time I saw a true picture of where we're at. And it was presented at Public Works, and I know there was a couple comments, and I know Trustee Miller, Rick Miller, said, wow, that looks like a big number. Well, yes, sir, it is. And I'm sure there's some that we won't do, but we're looking at $95, $100 million in borrowing. It sounds like a lot of borrowing, and you can't do it all through TID. So how are we going to do that? What are we going to do? How are we going to save money? There should be detail, and I hope detail comes out. And I know it's been stated here by Mr. Krecklow that people don't want the ins and outs and the depths. Trust me, you will not. There's no one in this room that can fool me with financials. I know them. I have a finance degree, and I've been in the business 25 years. You're not going to fool me, so I want to see the detail. That's my request as a taxpayer, and I hope it comes out. And I'll say it again, whoever this wants to be directed to, there is no summary financial report that I see at these meetings, which we used to have way back when we had horrible MSG data or whatever the heck we had. There was summary reports given to these committees when they met. And all we see is check runs and limited information. And what is I was told Tyler Muniz was amazing and could do any financial report on earth that they wanted. And I don't see any. There should be a summary report at every meeting once a month saying, hey, this is going well. Hey, this is not going well. This is under budget, given to you up there that sit on this board. I think that's what I would call a minimum expectation. And I'd like to see that. And I've been asking for it for months. Either it can't be done or nobody knows how to do it, but it should be able to be done, or Tyler Munis was a waste of money, and I hope that's not the case. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else for public input? If not, we'll move on to consent agenda. Item A, minutes of June 17th, 2024.
Move approval of the minutes?
I'll second for discussion.
All right, we have a motion to approve the minutes. Any discussion? Trustee Jan Miller.
Yes, please. This is a request, please. I've mentioned it, maybe not at GGF. I'm wondering if we could please, whomever prepares the actual minutes, Maddie, could, they used to be signed respectfully presented by whoever put them together. There's three, there's the village clerk and two assistants. So it could be any one of you three. So I would appreciate that if you could just sign off on who's making the actual minutes for that session. In addition to that, I was also wondering, for citizen input, citizens are required to fill out a yellow form with their name, address, and various items that they want to speak with. And all we're saying here in our minutes is various items. And can't we just, we used to say, it's usually listed on the yellow sheet. They made a comment about budget or finance or a report or something a little bit more descriptive than just various. Could you take that back to Donna?
Yeah, I'm happy to. And if I can just speak on that, when I do the minutes,
Yes,
and I write in what they spoke about,
yes,
when
sometimes.
when I say various items, that's because that's what's on the yellow slip. So whatever
Oh.
is on the yellow slip, that's what I put on there.
Okay. Maybe some people aren't as specific as I would be. All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's my only comment.
All right, any other comments? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. With that, we'll move on to unfinished business, ARPA update.
Much of the same in the ARPA update. The one, or I guess the few changes you'll see is two of the items moved from, recommended to approved, and that's the PD building design and Goldendale for the trail. On the allocation of remaining funds, the one change from the last GGF meeting was, and this will be on the agenda tonight, is the impact fee study. We had originally allocated $100,000, but the one staff is recommending is only $39,500. So we lowered that recommendation amount for the impact fee study. With that said, there's probably $65,000 that remain unallocated. That's not included on this allocation list or the allocation of remaining funds.
A bit about 65,000, you said that is not allocated yet?
Correct.
Okay.
If you include the ones that you're recommending,
Mhm.
Correct.
allocation of remaining. So the splash pad comes in, the impact fee study is corrected to 39,500, which will come up on the village board, and handguns. I think that's on the village board too.
I don't believe handguns has been brought to any committee yet.
Okay,
Oh, that's a new one, isn't it?
yeah.
Correct. That was
Yeah.
added,
I
I
don't-
believe that was added on the last GGF. But
Might have
that is
been
new.
after, because I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah.
Okay. It's good that we're saving money on the impact fee study. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, there was a wide range, as I'm sure the administrator will talk about. There's a wide range of costs, and Ayler's came in at a healthy 40,000.
Save money.
All right, any other questions, comments?
No.
Okay, if not, we'll move on to new business. Item A, agreement with Command Central for the rental of election tabulator machines for the August and November elections. Who's taking this one?
I'm happy to speak to it if you'd like.
Great.
So in the past, when we are able to, we borrow an ICE tabulator from the county if they have one available. They're always very gracious in letting us borrow it if they've got one. But as you can imagine with the upcoming elections, everyone is spoken for and has a waiting list. So we are requesting the $8,000 to borrow one tabulator for an extra central count machine for August, and then 3 extra ones also for central count for November.
Okay, committee. Trustee Jan Miller.
Thank you, Maddie, for the update. I can see where we absolutely need this, but I just wanted to question whether or not Washington County was going to pick this up because they came to all of the municipalities and they said that they would pay for whatever help we needed with elections. And I'm wondering, and maybe it's personnel and personnel time, but I'm wondering if we went to them and asked for the $8,000 that they would cover this.
That's not a discussion that I've been privy to. However, I know that if you're speaking of like their
Big,
package that they were talking about buying back some of the machines. That
Right.
was something different.
in addition to that, they were going to fund extra people to do the count.
Yeah, actually, the village clerk and I did meet with the county clerk a couple of months ago about that, and they did offer to pay for staff time during the in-person absentee voting process for some additional hours. So to the extent that we're able to provide those additional hours, with the number of staff that we have who can perform that activity, we will do that and they will reimburse us the cost for that. They're not willing to reimburse the cost for the central count machines.
That's too bad.
It is.
Yeah. Okay. And where is this money coming from?
There's room in the clerk's budget for election supplies and expenses.
Oh,
We budgeted
Okay, on a separate line.
35 some thousand, and this
Okay.
should be covered in that.
Okay, thanks a lot.
All right, trustee Kaminsky.
I just had kind of a dumb question. So they have a warehouse with all this stuff in it in Washington County, and then everybody in the county, the municipalities, contact them and rent this equipment.
So Command Central, actually, I believe is in Minnesota, if I remember correctly. The Washington County does store their extra machines if they have them already.
Okay, so this is actually.
Outside the
from
county.
Minnesota. Okay,
Command Central.
okay, thanks.
And then does it go through a certification process or something like that?
It does, yep, and all of the, so it comes to us kind of bare bones, ready to use, and then all of the, the chips and that kind of stuff will come from Washington County.
I see. Okay.
So is this a rental or is this a purchase?
These are rentals.
Rental.
Okay. Oh, yeah, rental. Thank you.
Right, I don't think we have a motion yet.
I'll make a motion to approve the $8,000 cost to rent let's get the wording here. What are we calling it?
Election tabulator.
The tabulators, the 4 tabulators for the upcoming elections.
I'll second.
All right, motion, any other discussion? If you hadn't caught it, there was a article in the county newsletter about the changes that are coming in the election and the process of that, so it was a pretty good article, I thought. Just a comment.
I guess I feel, I should point out, And this might be a topic for more discussion at a future date. But these machines are for central count. And that is one of the things the county is
Going away
asked
from.
both West Bend and Germantown to eliminate central count. And both West Bend and Germantown clerks declined to do that. I think in having been a part of those conversations, I think that central count is the most secure and efficient way to process those ballots. And, you know, there's a lot of good things, I think, in the county's package, the additional audit functionality, the additional hours for in-person absentee. That was something that, our village clerk and I believe the West Bend city clerk didn't feel comfortable going in that direction.
No, thanks for that follow-up, because they did state that in the article as well.
Yeah.
And I was curious myself as to why.
Well, and it's, you know, we, for one thing, and the article was a little bit off with this. You know, we have all of our absentee ballots here. So there's no transporting absentee ballots from the voting locations to the village hall. If we reversed it, we would have to do the opposite. We would have to sort all of the absentee ballots into the different voting wards and then transport them to the other voting locations. It also, you know, some of you may remember, it was that the village used to process absentee ballots at those sites, and it was kind of an issue with the voters who are voting in person, because then, you know, somebody pulls a stack of ballots out of a box someplace and then has to interrupt the line of people processing their own ballots through. So it was an inconvenience to the in-person voters, and it just, you know, it did raise questions about, like, well, you know, and then I think that the other thing that I would point out is this is my personal opinion, it's actually easier for people, observers from the two political parties or anyone who's interested in ensuring the security of absentee ballots, is if it's all in one place. It happens in this room. We always have set up over there a spot. Anybody who wants to come and observe and make sure the absentee ballots are being processed correctly, there's a place for observers to stand and watch. It's you know, it's an all-day process, but and there are folks who come in and monitor. I don't think anybody's ever stayed the whole time. It's an arduous and long process. But it's all in one place. It's easy for anybody who wants to monitor to monitor it. So
Thanks
I
for
know
that
it wasn't
update.
the topic, but wanted to make sure I pointed that out.
Okay, we have a motion. We've had discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item B, retention bonus for communication officers.
Thank you. So as you know, the transition to county dispatch started in 2024. We knew this was going to be a large process or a long process, depending largely on the county's ability to hire and retain dispatchers. They're still working through those challenges as we speak. We think we're still on the timeline that we presented last year. But I did want to do something to recognize what our dispatchers are kind of living through right now. So I presented 6 dispatchers, and one of those, Hannah Weisflog, is actually took a job as a clerk, but she's filling in as a dispatcher when we need that. We've also hired some part-time dispatchers to fill in where they are able, but our dispatchers are working a ton. They're feeling a lot of stress over this transition. They've been working a lot of 12-hour shifts, coming in on their off days a lot. We met with the county, Administrator Krecklow met with the county as well, and they committed to putting together funds to make these bonuses work so that it was not going to be a further expense to the village, but at the same time, we can recognize this as a bonus and just kind of a retention incentive is what we're looking at this as for what they've done up to this point. We still have a long way to go. This, we're going into 2025 before this transition is complete, but we thought it was important to recognize what they've done up till now. So, the bonuses are based on an additional $4 per hour for hours worked. If they were training, they get an extra $1 per hour. And you can see that Carrie Ross has done the bulk of the training up to now. So the bonuses I have listed here are what we are requesting to be approved.
And there's, Chief, there's no changes. Like you said, Hannah Weisflog has taken another job, but is this for previous hours worked?
This goes through June 1st, and she does continue to dispatch quite a bit when we need someone to fill in. We have two clerks doing her job, the job that she does basically. So sometimes we can allow her to dispatch.
And this is basically, we're just approving it, but it's covered by Washington County.
That's correct.
Trustee Jan Miller.
Will this bonus continue to be covered by Washington County until the transition is complete then?
That was my understanding in
Okay.
the discussions we had with Washington County.
Okay, good. It should.
Right. We didn't want to wait to the end. We thought it was
Yeah.
important to recognize something
Right.
now because they are feeling it. So we thought this was something that we could do for them.
Yeah, do you think this will be a quarterly thing or that you pay out, or will it be just added
I-
on
I-
from now on?
I think quarterly might be a realistic goal for us to have. I don't think anything's really written in stone, but that certainly is something we could look at.
Okay.
And all these officers are projected to go to the county? Is that right? I mean, they're in the transition of
These
becoming
dispatchers
county dispatchers?
No, none of our dispatchers went to the county. No, none of them did. Many of these will take clerical positions here.
Okay.
Once the transition is complete. Hannah has already taken one of those clerical
Yeah,
positions.
yeah.
Okay.
Interesting. Yeah, Trustee Jan Miller?
Are we going to continue to have about 4 clerical at our office, at your office?
The 4 clerical is what we had approved for 2024, but we already had a clerk typist.
Okay.
And an additional clerk that does property inventory and open records requests.
So
And I have the administrative secretary backed by me, but what we're calling clerks, there will be 6 of those.
6. Okay.
Trustee Kaminsky?
I like the idea of paying it like quarterly or every 6 months, because obviously then it's a retention bonus,
Right.
as opposed to giving them money monthly as you go along, because somebody could quit. I mean, these people, especially knowing they're not going to Washington County, it's just crucial that we keep them and reward them for staying. I totally support this.
So if I'm looking at this right, because it's in a Word document, and it's kind of jumbled, was it about 12,000 something dollars? Is that what you're looking at? Matt,
I
did you?
had a different
7, 8,
document prepared if I can find it.
10,
Yeah, pretty close to 12.
yeah.
12-ish? Okay.
Real close.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the retention bonuses for the communications officers as presented.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion. We've had discussion. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item C, contract for completion of impact fee studies.
Yeah, so one of the directives from the village board was to update our impact fee studies that we have in the village for fire, water, police, library, and park and rec facilities, as well as our sewer impact fee. So we went out with a RFP. I sent the RFP to 12 different companies and that provide this type of service in Wisconsin. We got 4 responses back from Baker Tilly, Ehlers, McMahon, and Ruckert and Milky. We had a evaluation team come together the finance director, public works director, fire chief, and police chief. I also did actually invite the park and rec director and the library director. They just weren't able to make it when we needed to get together in order to meet the timeline for the GGF committee. And after evaluating that, the committee, I've got the scores listed in the memo, is recommending award of the contract to Ehlers. They were also the lowest cost of the 4 proposals at $39,500. There is a pretty significant range in the cost from $39,500 to $100,000. One of the things we did look into was, what caused that variation. One of the reasons Ehlers was able to do this a little bit more efficiently is they have already done a lot of work with the village in areas that impact the impact fee, particularly with sewer and water, where they've done some of the rate studies and looked at that kind of thing. In addition, the consultant who's now with Ehlers and would be working on this, John Cameron, was with Ruckert and Milke back in the early 2000s and did the village's original impact fees. So he's got that background as well, and I think a little bit less of a learning curve. So I think the committee and I feel confident in their ability to complete the project with as proposed.
All right, committee? You got a question? Trustee Miller?
Can you tell us when, this is great news, the cost. Thank you for doing that. Can you tell us when this would start? It'll be awarded, and then when it will start and then finish, and then when can we change the impact fees?
The project, and I actually did put this on the village board agenda tonight as well, so we could get it moving along. Ehlers has indicated they'll start probably next week with some of the background work and with some additional meetings later in the month with the various departments involved, and anticipate completing all of the studies before the end of the year. So we could start out, then if the board there's resolutions that have to be adopted and there's a process we have to go through, but we could start implementing new impact fees and a sewer connection fee in early 2025.
Great, thanks.
Steve, when these impact fees, when the study comes back, I mean, there's a lot of subcommittees involved with this, Park and Rec and maybe Utility Advisory and Public Works, GGF, et cetera. Public Works have any?
Yeah, sewer and water.
Oh yeah, sewer and water, duh. So do you anticipate all those reviewing and then implementing?
We didn't incorporate every one of the committees into the review process. And I think, one way to look at the division of responsibilities is, for example, the Park and Rec Committee, I think, is mostly focused on what facilities the Park and Rec Department wants, and that was accomplished through the Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan. What the impact fee studies is really doing is looking at how those projects are funded. And I think that's really a GGF responsibility, looking at okay, we know what projects we want to do. We've got our 5-year capital plan. We've got our comprehensive outdoor recreation plan. We've got, our other plans, our library plan, for example. We know what we want to do out there. Determining what role impact fees play in that are really, I think, GGF. I didn't build it into this contract to have Ehlers go to each one of those committees. I'd be happy to do that. I could appear before each one of the committees and talk about this, brief them on this. I'd be happy to do that. But I think the real role in the decision-making factor I see is really a GGF responsibility.
Yeah, that makes sense. Terry, do you have anything? Okay. This has to go through village board, so we just need a motion to recommend positive.
Make a motion to recommend Ehlers for $39,500 to do the completion of impact fee studies.
I'll second.
Great. Any other discussion? If not, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. With that, we will move on to the reports. Accounts payable report, and there's a lot listed. Any questions on accounts payable?
Yeah, I have a question. Can this be consolidated in any way?
Like that.
Not really. I mean, this is the detail report.
Correct. I mean, I could combine them into one PDF, but that'll just make
It'll
one
be.
PDF larger. This is a record of each check that was
Yeah,
cut.
each transaction. Yep.
Uh-huh. Just a couple questions. I noticed that we paid Baker Tilly on 5/30 and 6/28. The total of the two was approximately $5,000. Does that mean that the audit's done? Was that audit payments or something else?
Those are payments for their work on the audit. The audit, the plan is to have them officially give us the audit on July 30th.
And is that their portion of the audit that's completed, or is
The full-
everything?
The full audit will be completed by July 30th,
Okay,
including the ACFR.
including the ACF?
Annual comprehensive financial report.
Okay. Okay. And I didn't get to look at the I didn't compare the two, but there were two companies that we always do business with. We do have a contract with Capital Data. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then what about like pest control? Do we have a contract?
There is a contract, I believe, with Batsner Pest Control.
Okay, because
under-
that's what it was paid.
That's
It's
under
paid,
contracts.
but I didn't. Did you find it? Well, if you find,
It's coming
well,
up.
okay,
Yeah, there should be a contract with Batsner, and they invoice us monthly
okay.
by building, I believe.
Oh, okay. Is that the same with Porta John too? Stuff like that?
Correct. Porta John, they invoice us monthly.
Okay. Can you explain on, I'm looking at my document and it's page 39. What does this mean? Non-departmental, non-D illegal taxes amount?
Those are for refunds that are sent. I don't have an example of what would be in there for that one.
We're giving them a refund?
Yeah, let me pull it up. Let me just look for an example
Sure.
for you. Let's see.
While he's doing that, yeah, under the contracts,
Did you find?
Batsner Pest Control is in there. There is no approved date, which means it's probably something that we could look at renewal and maybe a Public Works at some point.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mhm.
Because pest control be very important in the new DPW, because that's big.
Sorry, I'm just looking up the account detail here to see what.
Yeah, 50. Sure. Take your time.
Yeah. Okay.
When I saw illegal, it just kind of jumped out at me.
Yep, so what that one is that was from CIVMIC, where they when they do the audit of the workers' comp payroll. It looks like we charged the invoice they had sent us to that. But typically what gets sent there, we'll either track some refunds for taxes. I don't think we've had to do one since I've been here, or at least since I've been finance director. We haven't done a illegal tax refund, but typically that's where that would go.
So it's going back to them?
In this case, so CIVMIC, and Aaron could probably speak better to this than I can, but at the end of the year, CIVMIC does a payroll analysis of what
Oh,
we should have been fully charged for, and if they undercharged
this-
us, we pay them more. If they overcharge us, they give us a refund. And it looks like for the 2023 payroll, they underbilled us. So then this is
so
what,
we have to make it up.
correct.
That's for unemployment?
The detail here says audit workers' comp payroll.
Workers' comp.
Oh, okay. Okay. And then on page 45, we're paying Brian Design Group 20,000 refund, it says.
That is an occupancy bond. So when
It's a
again,
bond.
it's not a bond in the sense that we borrowed funds. So what happens when a developer or someone who's doing construction, when they pull their permit, they're required to submit an occupancy bond. So they submit $20,000 that we hold until they complete, all of their obligations.
Like an escrow.
Yes, and then once they complete them all, we, refund the $20,000 that we held as an occupancy bond.
Okay, thank you. And what about page 50? We're paying, I think we're paying there were 4 entries for Germantown School District, and it amounted to about $26,000. 6,600 per,
That,
I think it was rent.
is that are we renting space for, I know they use it for some of the facilities for Park and Rec.
so the two things we send checks over typically for the school district are for when we rent space for Park and Rec, we have a rental agreement. And then they also get a portion of our mobile home taxes. So that's what that 6,000 is. We cut a check typically monthly. Sometimes we'll do it quarterly. And the average per month is about 6,000 and some change depending on the mobile home taxes.
I'm asking because I don't know. Mobile home taxes has to be a separate line item. It is in our ledger.
Correct.
Why? Is that a state statute?
I think that's the way the state prefers it. I know
Okay.
going back, if you look at how the state prefers general ledger accounts to be set up,
Okay.
they do have a separate one
Okay,
in their recommendation.
okay.
Mm.
It's still a home, that's all I'm saying. Those are the questions I had.
Okay, what's the next thing on? My computer just locked on me. Payroll. Oh, budget
No,
action.
budget to actual. Thank you for sending the Excel file.
The one change I made, I tried to to have a sum line by department.
Yeah.
In the previous reports, I think it just had the total by fund. In this iteration, it does have it by department. Department and or division.
We're on budget to actual right now. I did have one question. The first line item under the 10, and I'm looking at the spreadsheet that you provided. Thank you.
Yeah,
Year-to-date actual is collected was 12 million, but our budget is 28 million. Now the second payments are due the 31st. Is that right? July?
For property taxes,
Yeah, for property taxes.
correct. The second installment is due at the end of July to the county. And then the county reconciles with us
Okay.
in August.
So it looks like we've only collected about half or just under half.
So what happens for those entry is it's a monthly entry.
Oh, it
It's
is?
Essentially, we take the overall dollar amount and divide it by 12, because,
So it's accrued or it's actually deferred.
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And then we get made whole in August with the county.
Now I understand.
So were you talking about the first line, general property taxes?
Yep.
Thank you. And there's the mobile home. And can you explain the hotel and motel taxes? It says the
Mhm.
appropriations or original was 312. So can you explain the next?
So when you when you rent an Airbnb or purchase a hotel room, there's a tax, a hotel motel tax that the village collects. And we're allowed to keep up to what we collected in 2010, and then the rest goes to the Tourism Commission.
Right.
Okay. Why 2010?
State statute, they capped it
Oh,
at
okay.
2010.
And so what number is that? The 2010? Is that the 312?
No, it's less than that. I believe it's like 235,000 is what
That sounds right.
the village keeps, and then anything over that goes to Tourism Commission.
So based on this spreadsheet, what is going to the Tourism Commission? The 194?
No, it would be anything collected over 235.
Yeah, that's, we really don't know until really the first quarter of the next year, what's been collected.
Oh, it's not done quarterly?
No, because the first part of it goes to the village, so nothing goes to the Tourism Commission until that
Correct.
threshold is met.
At
If you
the
look
235?
at 2020, I believe nothing went to Tourism Commission.
Right,
Because we didn't
Oh,
collect over
yeah.
235.
Okay,
right.
2010 was the base. And then. So the magic number is 235 and then. Or were you saying that the whole tourism budget was 235?
No, I don't know the exact number, just like Matthew was saying, but it's
Oh.
approximately 235,000. The first part of that, the first 235,000 goes to the village
Okay,
general fund, right?
Correct.
Okay, and then anything over that goes to tourism.
okay. And there, on line 11, there's the state shared revenue for 713,000. Is that specific to any category? Department, I mean.
No. No, it's classified under non-departmental. It's just a shared revenue from the state. Now, depending on how you want to look at it, we intended for 2024, police and fire salaries went up by over what our state shared revenue was, over our increase. So that increase we received from the state in 2024 helped offset the increase in police and fire salaries. But it's allocated as a non-departmental. It's not, a dedicated revenue to police or dedicated revenue to fire, like the state aid fire or federal aid fire or public safety.
What is the non-D vacancy and turnover? 26, line 26.
Yep.
What does that
So
mean?
that is a placeholder number that we use in the budget, knowing that, in any given year, we're not going to be fully staffed. So we don't want to over levy for vacancies. So we put in a vacancy and turnover number to kind of buy down the levy.
Okay. And I just highlighted a couple more. How can you tell if it's what you tried to put in as the subtotal for the category?
So if we, look-
Is like line 81 a subtotal?
are you looking at the Excel sheet? Let me take a look. I think
Yeah,
have
I
that
moved over to the Excel. It's easier to read.
up.
Because it doesn't have a little type number, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
You have ERD sometimes.
Computer, open it up.
Where's that, Jan? What line?
Line 81. It says total of information technology, so it's got some, like,
Line 81, correct. Yep, that'd be the subtotal for the IT department.
okay, so I see what you're doing. You're putting total in the front of whatever that category is.
Correct, and this is just directly pulled from Munis. I didn't do any formatting to change that.
Oh, it's pretty cool. And are the county grants also non-departmental? That's 137. Since we have time.
That, let me take a look here. No, that 137, that will be in the police department, and that'll be for the payment. The county had agreed to give the village $150,000 as we transferred dispatch to the county. We created that line to track that payment.
Okay, there's the dispatch. And the commitment was 150 per year.
It'd be 150 this year in 2024, and then once dispatch has transitioned over, then there wouldn't be any further payments.
Right, but if it takes till mid next year, we still get half of that, right?
I don't
Yeah.
believe that was part of the discussions. I don't recall that portion of the discussion. I know there was a payment of $150,000 in 2024. I guess depending on the pace of transition, I'm not sure how that looks for 25.
Steve, do you know anything?
Yeah, the $150,000 was to help basically fund our costs of maintaining dispatch on a partial basis this year. So I actually anticipate, based on the schedule that we've been talking about, if the county, as planned, takes over third shift dispatch by September 30th, that then I believe we'll be down to 4 people at that point. Is that correct, Chief Stone? That then September will be down to four individuals.
Likely.
Yeah, so I think we will get down to that savings level before the end of this year, even if the transition isn't fully complete. We'll just have some of the people who will be staying on as clerks in the, or admin assistants in the police department, continuing to cover some of the shifts as needed. So I anticipate that financially that will take place before the end of the year. I think if it doesn't, then some of that amount would roll over into 2025, but I think we will it looks to me like we will get there by the end of the year, even if that final shift isn't transitioned over.
Okay. And then, question on
Mhm.
148, school resource officer. Do we only make one payment on an annualized basis? It's supposed to be a 50-50 split.
Correct.
Great.
No, they pay us. I believe they pay us per payroll, or at least monthly. We'll invoice them for the time the school resource officers were at, either the school, or if they did, overtime, working a football game or some types of those things, we'll invoice them. That's where we track those revenues coming back in.
Just to correct that agreement change, it's not 50-50 anymore. We fund, I think, 75. All right.
No.
School resource officer?
No. We used to be 75 and went to 50-50, I thought. 5,
Wow.
yeah.
Now it's
Now it's
50-50?
50-50.
Oh, I had that backwards. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I remember. That I remember. All this stuff there is. So that doesn't, it just says year to date. It's not,
Correct. What I will likely do is or I'll probably talk to Brian if it needs to be a formal budget amendment, but we should have a budgeted revenue there
yeah,
for the offset. Historically, we've just tracked the expense or the revenues there.
right,
But there probably should be a budgeted revenue there.
right.
If that needs a formal budget amendment, I'd probably ask Brian on that.
Okay,
But it would be, essentially, the budget would be half the expense of the resource officer.
right, right. I would be happy to do that. IT, pet. Hmm. Okay. And. Oh, is this current? I just had a question about the overtime for fire and police. The fire says 67,000. Is that? It's line 226. 226. And then there's also, this is the budget that I remember, the line 248, the 120,000.
Correct. It looks like we'll have to do a transfer, just looking at this line. That one, is that overtime that's being allocated up in the fire admin line should actually be allocated down to the 120. So I'll have to go back and look in Munis. It must be in the payroll. It's defaulting to the admin when it should default to fire protection services.
Okay,
So that 67 should be next to that 120.
next to it or in,
Next to it. So of the 120,000 we budgeted, we spent 67,000 year to date
that makes sense.
as of last
Yeah,
Thursday or Friday.
right, right. That makes sense. Thank you. And this is just a question. I don't know if you know the answer.
Mhm.
Is there, there's a line 302, it says highway overtime. Do we pay a lot of overtime in highway?
It was line 302.
Yeah. It says 25,000 and nothing's been. I would think if is that like plowing overtime? I don't know. Yeah, more than likely. Thank
It
you.
would be for plowing and things like that. It doesn't look
We
like.
didn't have a bad winter. Okay. Just trying to get the. It's the first time I got to spend much time on this. Oh. Oh, and then we do have, I see that you included all the TIDs in here as well. We have 6, 7, 8, and 9.
Correct.
Mhm.
That was the end of my questions.
Okay,
Do you have any?
anything else? Computer's back. With that, we'll go to payroll. Any questions on payroll? Usually not. All right, with that, we'll move on to IT quarterly. It's just a summary from Capital Data of what was completed or ongoing, just a snapshot of the quarter. Yeah,
So they're in charge of getting DPW up and running from a tech standpoint? And I guess my question is that on schedule? It says on here, waiting for equipment to be approved and ordered, or?
yeah, that's going through more construction, right?
Correct. That actually is a separate contract through more construction. They are doing that. And the last update I had from the Public Works Director last week was that is looking to be on schedule and should be complete. The move should be starting, about a month from now. They'll be starting to move some things over.
Is it going to be like a parade of equipment going? That should be a very cool photograph.
You
video.
know, there's a lot to move. So it's going to be a couple of month process for them to get everything over.
Maybe we should schedule a parade.
Yeah. We are, and we don't have a date set yet, but we have been working to schedule, we're planning an open house to invite the community in and take a tour. And, we want to do some interesting things. If it's available, I'd like to get the ladder truck up and out over up on a lift. So a lot of people have seen a ladder truck, but probably not many people have seen the underneath of one. So there's some things like that I think will be good for the community to see and see what their tax dollars are going for.
Thanks.
So my question is there anything we should be alarmed about on the capital data?
No. The other big project, and I can't speak to a lot of the details on this, but the other big project that's currently underway, if you recall, they're replacing the switches, the older switches that were no longer supported and unsecured in the village system. And that project has been going very smoothly. I mean, there's always some hiccups here and there, but that project has been going smoothly. And actually, when I had my update on this with Aaron last week, the thing that we talked about is really how our system is stabilized. And, there were a lot of bumps in the road when we were changing over our email system and changing the servers and updating a lot of our software packages. But now I think things have really stabilized and settled down, and we're not seeing big spikes in tickets or things like that. And I think that's reflected in the report that you have.
Thank you.
Okay, and the last one is contracts, and we also received a spreadsheet for the contracts.
Yeah.
Yes, the only difference between the spreadsheet and the one that is in the packet is the one on the spreadsheet also has all the allocation lines by contract.
Yeah, I saw that. Trustee Kaminsky.
It doesn't look like anything coming up in the very near future. Am I correct on that?
I believe, are you talking about like,
Yeah, when renewals or reviews, and they always go through committee for the most part anyway, don't they?
yeah, the only I know there's some larger contracts on the village board agenda tonight, but most of the renewals happen towards the end of the year. Most of them are smaller amounts that are under 75,000. But that's something we want for 2020, once from 24 to 25 to get them on this spreadsheet as well. Even though they are smaller dollar amounts, we want them in contracts.
Right,
Just so
and then
there's
it's
one
tracked.
central location,
Right.
correct?
And it's a goal.
Correct.
And most of the items that I saw without an approved date are one-off contracts for the most part. There are a few exceptions to that, like Batzner and Capital Data and
Some of the larger ones, so the capital data ones, I don't have an approved date on there just because.
right. I think that's
It's
more of
not-
an
they're-
ongoing,
They're
but
likely in 22 or early 23, and I just didn't go back and look for them. Anything under 7,500, there probably isn't an approval date because those aren't required to be approved by committee. For example, kind of switching gears, if you look at the Dunn's contract,
mhm.
I think the total we had in there was 35,000. We don't have a formal contract with Dunn's, but we know Park and Recreation is going to spend a certain dollar amount with Dunn's. And we just want to kind of highlight that on the contracts
Yeah.
report.
Mm. It's smart, especially if they're a repeat supplier.
Correct. We know we're going to spend so much money with Dunn's, and next year we'll probably will be able to fine tune that 35,000. Going back, we just kind of looked at what we had spent in previous years, but going forward, we can fine tune that number. But that's one of the benefits there.
I think I've asked this before, but in Munis, do you have a renewal date that you can put in?
There is an option for a renewal date. I don't know if many of the contracts on here have them. We probably will be going through, most of the ones that are renewal, probably are smaller and aren't on here yet. But I know in 24, 1, 25, we'd like to get them on there. The one that I know for sure will have a renewal will be Tyler Munis, will be coming up at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And that's going to have a renewal. So that could be a column we add to the spreadsheet, tracking renewals and when they're upcoming.
Will we need any other programs from Tyler Munis, or would it be just the maintenance that we need, that maintenance program?
The renewal would be just currently what we have.
Okay,
Wouldn't be any additional
Support.
software or, support on there. It wouldn't be any additional programs or software that we don't, aren't already paying for.
okay. Thank you.
All right, any other questions?
Thanks for doing these.
You're welcome.
So,
Great, yeah, thank you. If not, our next meeting would be scheduled for August 19th, Monday. Is that all right?
August?
August 19th would be the third Monday,
Okay,
a little bit later.
That's great.
it's good so far.
So we'll schedule that for August 19th, 5:30. Something changes, we will notify everyone. And with that, we will adjourn the meeting at 6:34.
Thank you. can be up to like. Like during the eating.
$50,000
During.
this week.
What?
$50,000 for 1 week in your. There's several houses in.
Just Hills was renting? Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't want. I can tell. I know what I'm gonna do. Just live in the. Go to the car. Sweaters.
Yeah.
Great business owner.
Yeah.
It's okay, it's Friday. We had even brought you, it's a honest yard.
Yeah.
It's just like. Yeah, I don't cheat. Really? Probably ours. Right. Sure. Yeah, because he's. But I want. I don't know about that.
Was Kevin with CEO?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I'm sure to take your mind. Oh, man, yeah. Oh, then it's all, it's not the whole one, it's not. Yeah. Oh, man, so it's, and it doesn't go, yeah, it's not all the way west. It's not all the way up.
Dirty crap. Next. Oh, I was thinking.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was looking, I was like, yes.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, me.
Yeah. But it's like.
Oh.
That's it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's.
Yeah, we're thinking you guys said.
Yeah. We have.
Yeah.
So. Almost. Some grass.